We are those guys. You see these guys all the way over there? Well, what about those guys? I'm Alex Hardy, joined as always by Nick Ferguson, 10 years in the National Football League, and he joins us now. It is Monday Night Football recap. We are currently watching the Houston Texans and the Seattle Seahawks, but let's start things, Nick. The Detroit Lions take care of business 24-9 over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, both of them sitting 5-2, both of them sitting squarely within the NFC conference, kind of top of the deck there. What did you see from a Detroit team that just relied on Jameer Gibbs, dominated on the ground, and really gave Baker Mayfield, our MVP frontrunner, kind of an erratic performance tonight?
What I saw was the attitude of their head coach, Dan Campbell. We remember the last time we saw this team, they had a touchdown taken off the board playing against Kansas City, and it just seemed as though like Kansas City owned them, and that wasn't the blue-collar attitude of the Detroit Lions. And tonight they were able to get things back on track against, Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who I had as, the number one team in the NFL as far as the team to beat, and Baker Mayfield being the front runner for the MVP. But, he was neutralized tonight, and he looked more like Clark Kent. But here's what it says. It says that quarterbacks, once again, don't win games by themselves. You need a whole combination of individuals a la the Justice League, if we're talking about comic book characters. But it seemed as though the Detroit Lion had all the characters. And it's interesting you talked about Jameer Gibbs and how he was able to run the ball. This team, their bread and butter is on their physicality. They're in that black and blue division. And tonight they did that and ran roughshod over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
It made sense wearing their black and blue jerseys, playing in that black and blue division. Yeah. The physicality you saw when the offensive line set him up and sprung him for that 78-yard run on the outside. You saw that physicality when Jameer Gibbs was asked to run it. I think he had like a 5-yard pickup on a fourth down. Typically, you'd see David Montgomery doing that. They asked Jameer Gibbs to do it, and he's capable of it as well. They were just more dominant on both ends of the attack. And two of the most injury-riddled, I guess there is San Francisco. We'll get to them because they took care of business on Sunday night. But two of the most injury-riddled teams in the National Football League. You had all four starters in the secondary. I thought the Lions were going to give you a call, Nick, that were out for this game. Brian Branch, for his own reasons. I know we disagreed on whether or not, Juju had a glass jaw or not. But it was a game that I was sort of worried that without anybody in that secondary, they were going to have issues because Mike Evans was coming back, Emeka Egbuka not missing any time, and yet just more setbacks for Tampa. And Baker's capable of these erratic kind of games. It reminded me of the Bronco game last year when Tampa Bay started 2-0. They host the Denver Broncos and get absolutely trapped. We thought, look, they're facing a rookie Bo Nix who still hadn't thrown a touchdown pass yet, but that Bronco defense kind of neutralized them, and that's really what Denver did despite all the guys that they were missing. And meanwhile, listen, Mike Evans came in after missing a couple games with a hamstring injury, takes a big hit, ends up breaking his collarbone. His season is pretty much done, ending one of the best streaks in the NFL, 11 straight years of 1,000 receiving yards. And look, that just makes life very difficult for Baker Mayfield, and the setbacks for Chris Godwin to come into this season. He's never been 100%. Emeka Egbuka, definitely not 100%. But look, they need to get Bucky Irving back in a hurry, and I wouldn't be shocked if Todd Bowles rolled them out this time tomorrow. So it's going to be Rachaad White, it's going to be a banged-up Emeka Egbuka, and it's going to be MVP Tez Johnson.
But you know what? This says a lot about, the NFL. And obviously, it's always said that it's a war of attrition. And we've seen so many marquee players go down for a number of teams. And you think about the Chargers, they're still winning games, and they have injuries. They got Khalil Mack back. San Francisco, it's like every time you watch them, someone's always hurt.
Right. Nobody's making excuses.
Right. So this is one of those times we say, well, our team is beat up. That's why we're not winning games. And it's like, hell, from week one, no one's 100%. You just need to find ways to win games. And even if that means changing your system, going deep into your depth, finding ways to win. And this is going to be one of those odd years when we get to the back half of the season, Alex, and teams start to position themselves for playoff positions. the first thing we're going to look for, well, who's hurt, right? Who's healthy is on a lot of these teams, and that's going to be the tail of the tape. But, it was a great game. I enjoyed watching it from a Detroit Lions standpoint. What a way to come out and kind of like stamp your name back on the fact of, we lost a game against Kansas City, but that doesn't define who we are as a team, and that's what you need to have, as they would say, the mindset of a goldfish, being able to put things behind you and being able to move forward. And once again, I mean, Brian Branch, the physical guy, the leader of your secondary, he's not playing in the secondary. No DJ Reed, Terrion Arnold's not playing. They're just beat up. But they just found a way to win games, and that's what you have to do in the NFL.
We'll get to the second game of the Monday night doubleheader. Awesome that we get a 7 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Mountain Time kick, because it keeps us going. And then right on cue, we had a Game 7 in Major League Baseball. Tomorrow, the NBA regular season begins. We're being overfed, Nick. We're getting fat and happy on all this great sporting events for us to watch. Like, look, I'm a pig in slop. I mean, simply put, like this is where we're at, and we'll get more into it. I mean, it's very funny, kind of like the Spider-Man meme with Seattle and Houston looking each other in the mirror. Neither team able to run the football. The passing offense, they're trying to funnel it through one guy in particular. It's working out better for Seattle. That Sam Darnold, the JSN connection, much better than when we saw Cooper Kupp try to throw the football to him. That's for damn sure. But we'll get to that game a little bit more Thursday. Our theme when we talked prior to Week 7 was who was going to put any pressure on Tampa in the NFC South. And we thought it could have been the Atlanta Falcons, but they show up to Sunday Night Football, go across the country to San Francisco, and pretty much lay a dud against another injury-depleted team in the 49ers. I mentioned it. If we talk about the effective game Jameer Gibbs had, well, Christian McCaffrey, 129 yards on the ground, 72 in the air. It was a game that was just carried on his back. Mac Jones did have the costly interception, but still, this is a team that they let Atlanta get close, and then they closed things out in the fourth quarter with the game-sealing touchdown on their second-to-last drive. Defense getting Atlanta off the field. I was really impressed with the way that defense stepped up. And meanwhile, Atlanta just looked completely lost. I really thought they had an advantage both with their weapons on offense and with the stability on their offensive line coming to shape a little bit, but that was far from the case. Michael Penix, 21-38 for 241 and a touchdown, sacked a couple of times, but they couldn't run the football either. Bijan Robinson got fed early and often, but if you put that ball in Michael Penix's hands, he could not do anything against that Niners defense.
See, here's what that says to me. It says that San Francisco has something cooking. They're doing something that other teams wish that they can actually do. And I know Kyle Shanahan gets a lot of grief because they look at him like Marv Levy, a guy that can get the team there but can't really get them across the finish line. But I will have those people to think about this. I mean, the San Francisco 49ers.
We'll get to them.
Yes, they've been able to get to the Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo and Mr. Irrelevant, and that's Brock Purdy. And Brock Purdy isn't playing yet. They're still winning games with Mac Jones, which is wild because you think about that 49er defense. You think about the number of marquee players on all three levels that have been injured. You look from the safety position. Talanoa Hufanga, who I think is extraordinary safety, he's now playing with the Denver Broncos. So you're saying, well, how is it that Robert Saleh is able to get this young, inexperienced defense to continue to play the way that they're playing? Oh, by the way, we watched the Atlanta Falcons. I mean, the week before, Bijan Robinson and Drake London were fantasy darlings, right? With the number of the rushing yards for Bijan and catching out of the backfield. None of that happened. And you thought going into this game, there's no way the San Francisco 49ers are going to be able to shut him down, but shut him down they did. And basically what Kyle Shanahan said, look, I'm depleted with the players that I have, right? I have a good field goal kicker, which serves well. I have a very serviceable quarterback, right? He's not a top tier. He's going to do everything that we want. But I have that dude in Run CMC. We're just going to lean on him. We're going to put it on his back, and he's going to carry us forward. Now, my only issue with this, Alex, is that we've seen this happen to CMC before, where he's carrying the brunt of the load of the San Francisco 49ers, and when they need him in the playoffs, he's been run down. So they're going to have to try to find a way to manage him. But, man, Kyle Shanahan looks like he is deserving of the Coach of the Year for the job he's doing.
As for Atlanta, no better opportunity than a get-right game. They host the Miami Dolphins next week. So I think we'd all be just as shocked to find out that Mike McDaniel still has his job next week based on the lack of effort that we saw in a rained-out game against the Cleveland Browns. But look, he's going to be fortunate that he puts that key card in front of the door and the door opens. Look, there's a lot of issues with Miami. But let's talk about a team with more issues. And that would be those New York Giants who go toe-to-toe, up 19-0 in the fourth quarter against the Denver Broncos. They score 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, and they still make history losing that game 33-32. I'm not going to scapegoat the practice squad kicker who missed a couple PATs. I'm going to scapegoat that defense that gave up, I believe it was 33 fourth quarter points, Nick. Is this really just coming down to literally the way the football bounces because we had back-to-back touchdown drives with deflected balls that ended up in other receivers' hands? It was, Troy Franklin, and then the Giants came back the other way with Theo Johnson. Was this just the wildest game that really came down to the way the ball bounced?
Well, it was a wild game, but here's what I don't agree with. The whole idea is that you blame Shane, I think it's Shane Bowen, the defensive coordinator for the Giants. He's catching a lot of strays in New York City, both, I guess, nationally and locally.
And by me.
Yes.
Let's put a name to it. I'm criticizing Shane Bowen.
Okay, but to blame him solely for the 33 points, keep this in mind. So that meant that the defense for 3 quarters did their job. I mean, they totally made Sean Payton's offense look like a JV offense, right? And in the fourth quarter, things changed because guess what? His offense, Brian Dable's offense, didn't control the time of possession, right? Once again, usually we say it's a tale of 2 halves, but it was 3 quarters for the Giants, the fourth quarter for the Broncos, and the Broncos couldn't get anything going. So their defense was constantly on the field while everyone was kind of getting upset and blaming the Broncos defense and Vance Joseph for not being able to slow down Jackson Dart and Cam Scatterbo. But once again, I said that you have to sustain the drives. You have to get first downs because if not, you're putting your defense in a tough spot, that their defense were definitely put in because there was no flash and dash like it was in the first 3 quarters. And it seemed like Brian Dable kind of got a little conservative, right? We have the Broncos exactly where we want them, and he got a little conservative with his play calling because early in the game, the Giants started off running the ball that set up the play action. Meanwhile, the Broncos, they passed the ball because, I mean, just think about this. Bo Nix finished with 50 passing attempts. Yes. 50.
That's playing from behind. That's playing from behind. I mean, you can't call it. Look, you're down 19-0 to start the fourth quarter. You get down 3 scores. Like it's not garbage stats. It's just they weren't effective running the football. I think they had 6 first downs in the first 3 quarters. They were just trying to throw back into it. And as for the Giants, they still matched Denver when they started scoring touchdowns. Denver, I think, took 3.5 minutes to score their first points on that opening drive of the fourth quarter. They get down the field and they score 3 more touchdowns, each of those drives in less than a minute. I understand that the Giants couldn't, they were getting off the field quickly. They're also getting off the field quickly because they scored 2 touchdowns themselves. So I'm not solely blaming the defense, but I'm not going to make the kicker public enemy number 1 either. Because if you're relying on your second kicker to make PATs, what's that?
Does he cash a check? Does he get paid to do a job, right?
Does the defensive coordinator get paid to do a job?
Yes, but as a defensive coordinator, you put players in a position, they have to perform. As a kicker, you don't tackle anyone. You're not running behind the offensive line. You're not even catching passes. You do one thing and one thing only. What is that thing that you do as a kicker, Alex? Please tell me.
I understand. You kick the football, Nick.
You kick the football, not miss field goals. So Now, I'm not going to, with that being said, I'm not going to solely blame the kicker, right? I'm not going to
of course
solely
not.
blame
No,
him,
no, no.
right? But he had a job to do. And then there was moments where Jackson Dart, think about it this way. The 3rd and 5 play where he threw the interception to Justin Strenard,
Yep.
it's a 3rd and 5. The Broncos have 1 timeout remaining, right? So why not run the ball, force the Broncos to utilize that timeout, milk the clock, win the game, and hopefully your kicker can actually kick the field goal. But if you go back and check out the play, it's at Nick Ferguson _25. Check out the video. I break it down. On the 3rd and 5, Jackson Dart has a choice. Either run for the 5 yards or try to throw to Bellinger, his tight end. What he tried to do, he tried to throw to Bellinger. And he telegraphed the play because he watched him the entire time.
Yeah.
The lesson the young quarterback is going to learn, but I'm going to tell you this now. I'm going to tell you this. With that defense that they have with Thibodeau, Brian Burns, Abdul Carter, add some more Dexter Lawrence, they add more value to that. They get Malik Neighbors back. They draft some other weapons. To me, when you look at the Giants, man, and come 2026, they're going to be that team for real.
You know, you mentioned Jackson Dart and the issues that you see from a quarterback making his 4th career start. I can tell you nobody's more upset for that kind of mistake than Sean Payton, who really, I think, was more upset than anybody because he was, after the game, talking about how it should have been none other than Russell Wilson who should have been on the opposing sideline. So how about none other than Sean Payton holding a grudge, undefeated, talk to Nathaniel Hackett. How about this guy winning and saying how he really wished that Russell Wilson was still out on that football field. Like we said before, those goalposts that Russell Wilson threw to in that Cowboy game, they really wish that he was still out on that football field as well. Sean Payton, Petty King, Nick.
Yeah, you can tell that Sean still holds a grudge. And being here in Denver, it was obvious that that wasn't a marriage that was made in heaven. At moments when things were going well, it looked like it was. And then the bottom fell out in that Detroit game where we all saw Sean screaming and yelling at Russ. And when asked about that after the game, he said, well, that's between me and my quarterback. And no one should ask questions. It's like we all saw it. It was a nationally televised game. How can you expect no one to even ask a question about, well, what was that about, coach? And just kind of brush it off. You know what? For me, Russ is where he is. Sean is where he is. There was no reason to kind of, beat that dead horse, if you will, and take a moment to take another shot at Russell. I just thought it was uncalled for. And it's one of those things when you're trying to figure out a way to answer a question, always try to keep it classy. Talk about Bo, right? Talk about everything that Bo did, what Bo can improve on. Because even in the press conference, when someone asked about tempo, right, which was a change in the game, Sean didn't want to talk about tempo. No. We're not talking about tempo. Only to have, check this out, to have Bo Nix and Mike McGlinchey talk about tempo and how that changed the game after the Strenard interception. And they were not prompted to respond in that way. They offered that. They were freely willing and giving to say, well, we went up tempo. And I'm thinking, like, if you have your star right tackle and your quarterback saying, man, we look so much better going up tempo, you would think that you would go up tempo.
Right, but that's not the game that Sean Payton calls, right? He's the one holding the clipboard, which on the back says, remember to run the damn ball. That's Sean Payton's decision. Damn what the quarterback or the star right tackle think, Nick. That's inside the mind of Sean Payton.
Wait. I thought the idea as a coach, I could be wrong. Please correct me if I'm out of pocket. I thought the idea of coaches on either side of the ball is to set your players up to be successful at whatever cost, no matter what, because it's about the player. Am I wrong in that mindset?
There are two teams in the AFC currently above your Denver Broncos. We're talking my New England Patriots and the 6-1 Indianapolis Colts. Both winners on Sunday. The Patriots taking care of business after playing with their food in the Mike Vrabel return against the Tennessee Titans. We also had the Colts make the cross-country trip, come to Los Angeles, absolutely blow out the Chargers. It was never even close. I would say of the two winning teams, Shane Steichen is coaching out of his mind, and Jonathan Taylor, believe it or not, Nick, on pace for 2,000 yards and 26 total touchdowns. So let's just go top down, right? The only 6-1 team in the AFC, the Indianapolis Colts, are getting it done with an incredibly efficient offense, a completely balanced one, as good as Jonathan Taylor is. Daniel Jones still has to drop back 34 times. Super clean, super efficient, not turning the football over. And meanwhile, this defense, man, there's some questions in the secondary, but boy, did they miss Kenny Moore. He's back with Cam Byron back there, and the pass rush got home too. 2 sacks from DeForest Buckner on Justin Herbert, just absolutely abusing what is, I believe at this point, the Chargers' 7th and 8th tackles on the depth chart.
Well, that's a tough situation to be in if you are Coach Harbaugh, and more importantly, if you're Justin Herbert, is having protection. And this is where things are different for Shane Steichen and Daniel Jones, because you talked about the number of dropbacks for Daniel Jones. Yeah, you can do that when your offensive line is doing a hell of a job keeping you clean, and having a guy like, Jonathan Taylor that you can dump the ball off to or hand the ball off to. To me, this is a different looking Colts team. And as I talked about, Kyle Shanahan earlier, Shane Steichen is definitely a candidate for Coach of the Year. Just think.
Yeah.
A year ago, Anthony Richardson was the quarterback, and we saw Jonathan Taylor doing Jonathan Taylor type of things, but they were not at this particular point. You bring in a guy who was presumed to be a cast-off, and he's looking for a jump start in his career, and now he is Mr. Indiana. And, I'm happy for any comeback stories, because once again, Daniel Jones could be the comeback player essentially of the year, especially if the Colts get into the playoffs. And could he make people forget about Andrew Luck? Strong possibility.
Well, that comes with the Super Bowl, because Luck made at least one AFC championship, 2 maybe AFC
he
championship.
Won the Super Bowl.
Luck didn't.
No, he didn't. I didn't say Daniel Jones was going to make.
No, that's Indiana Jones, is a great meme, but as far as replacing the best quarterback they've had since Peyton Manning, one of the most promising guys that retired, right before his 7th season, like that's a meteor, that's an enigma, that's something that flashes across the sky, and like Halley's Comet, you may never see again in the National Football League for 80 years. So Daniel Jones has a lot more to do, but look, 7 games of an offense that efficient is a pretty large enough sample size that they are one of the best offenses in terms of EPA, expected points per attempt. Like they are one of the most efficient offenses we've seen in the last 20 years. And 7 games is something to kind of build on. Like, I don't know if you could call them this year's Minnesota Vikings and make the comparison of Daniel Jones coming from that KOC, that KOC team in Minnesota last year. Maybe it just goes up in a puff of smoke when they get to the playoffs. But until we get there, I don't see any reason why they couldn't continue to lead the AFC. And I will say, for my 5-2 Patriots right behind them, they're beating teams they're supposed to beat, whereas last year and the year before, they were the team that was supposed to be beaten. I think that's a huge difference, and I understand that they've looked their best beating up on New Orleans, beating up on Tennessee. They still have to play the Jets twice. They still have to play the Dolphins again. But I just have to say, they are on track to at least get to the postseason, which is a far cry from where they were. And honestly, nobody's been more accurate throwing the deep ball. Jason McCourty kept hammering that on the CBS broadcast yesterday, and then right before the half, Josh McDaniel wants to play keep away. He wants to make sure he gets the ball at the end of halftime. Boop! 50-yarder to Keyshawn Boutte to close that first half. So I've been impressed with the poise that Drake May's played with, and he's rushed at times because that offensive line is still a far cry from what Indianapolis has or your Denver Broncos have, but they've just been very good and very timely at doing enough to get by, teams they're supposed to beat.
Well, yeah, it's kind of, you play the teams that are on your schedule. You can't do anything about it. it's not their fault. They happen to be in the AFC East that's pretty weak right now at this particular point. And that's saying that with Josh Allen being in that division, especially knowing what Sean McDermott's defense has been over the past couple of weeks. So does it look like it could be a triumphant, Patriots return? Things are shaping up in that direction now. Once we get to the playoffs, that's when so many things actually change and the cream rises to the top. But as it stands right now, Drake May is doing a great job. Vrabel had his, I guess if you want to call it, revenge game. So much so that long veteran Tyler Lockett is asking to be traded.
Yeah, he's gone. He's gone. He's out.
Is he?
Yeah,
Okay.
They cut him. They cut him.
And I don't blame him, because being in that locker room, seeing the chaos in that organization, a guy of his caliber, he doesn't want to be involved with that. I wouldn't be surprised with the way that things taking place in Las Vegas that he looks to link back up with his old coach Pete Carroll and Geno Smith, because hey, man, they need help bad in Vegas.
Well, I know Lorenzo Carter hung it up during training camp, just looking at this team and saying, thanks, but no thanks. Amari Cooper doing the same with the Vegas Raiders. Thanks, but no thanks. Hey, look, maybe Amari was onto something with the way that they operate in Vegas. And look, we mentioned the 6-1 team, the 5-2 teams, and there they are, 4-3, Kansas City, 31-0 over the Raiders. Is this just the return of Rashee Rice? This offense is whole again? Or is this just taking advantage of playing the schedule and beating up on the Raiders?
Well, it's the idea of beating up on a bad team, a team that's trying to.
That's all that is. Wow, you've got a lot of people saying Kansas City's back.
I'm just saying. I mean, you asked. I'm telling you, this is just a team beating up on a bad team. I know. I'm listening to national media. Oh, the Chiefs are back, and Nick Wright. I mean, he's a Chiefs homer no matter what.
That's But we can't be unbiased here.
The Chiefs are back. How are you back? Right? How are you really, really, really back? No, I mean, you have to play a more dominant team. And playing the Raiders right now in that Chiefs game, you know what that's like? That's like going over to the sandbox and taking some kids lunch or something like that when they know they can't fight back. That's kind of what that is, Alex. Let's call it what it is. That's what that game was. Playing against another competitive, a dominating team, now we would be able to say, ooh, wow, the Chiefs are back. Until we do that, no, I can't really say that. And it sounds like I'm saying it because I'm a former Broncos player. I'm not.
Sure.
I mean, just give me the evidence to say, no, the Chiefs are back. Rashee Rice just comes back, then all of a sudden they're back? Come on now.
Okay, their next 5 weeks, they host the Commanders on Monday Night Football. They are at Buffalo. They have their bye week. Then coming off the bye, they go to Denver, and then they host the Colts. Those are 4 legitimate teams. I mentioned the bye week in the middle. They're 4-3. What's their record after those 4 games?
Well, I'm thinking they're probably taking L in 2 of those games with the Broncos and the way the Colts are playing, unless something miraculously happened between now and then. Because, look, I have faith in the Broncos, not because of their offense. Their offense is really skilled and talented, but it's because of their defense. Their defense is the thing that really kept them in. Now, if you tell me that there's going to be massive breakdowns in the Broncos defense, then I'll say, well, you know what? I will lean the other way with the Kansas City Chiefs, but I will not do that until I actually see that matchup and see how both teams actually play when they face off.
Well, we'll see. I mean, that matchup with Washington is definitely interesting because they're coming off that loss to the Dallas Cowboys. Jaden Daniels gets banged up again. Look, they lost by 22 points. It could have easily been even more than that. Dak Prescott just looking great. CeeDee Lamb integrated into that offense. Look, neither team has that strong of a defense, but Dallas is on that schedule for Kansas City as well. That's a game that could easily total, 80 points if everything plays out right for, how we want it to for fantasy football, or if you're taking the over in your pick'ems. Look, I'm encouraged as anybody that through 7 weeks, there's no clear team that is dominant over the rest. Philadelphia definitely made a statement, and I'm one to say, hey, they could just as easily beat anybody in the NFC, especially getting A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith involved in the passing game. Honestly, the best passing performance we've seen from Jalen Hurts since they hoisted the Lombardi. So, look, could we be headed for another Eagles-Chiefs collision course? We could be, but
No,
based
we're
on what
not.
we've seen from
No,
Indianapolis, what we've seen
no.
from other teams in the NFC, I'm just saying, it's wide open still. That's my whole point. That's my whole
Yes,
point, is that it's wide open.
it's still wide open. But the idea of the Chiefs and Philadelphia, I don't know. Maybe
I'm just saying it's a possibility. As much as it is give me chaos, it could be those teams again.
Yeah, it's a possibility, right, that it could happen, but it's not something that I think will happen. I mean,
Right.
when you look at Philadelphia, yes, the rough patches that they've experienced thus far, it's going to battle test them. It's going to make sure that they're ready towards the end. But when you look at the AFC and the NFC, there's more challengers in the AFC than there are in the NFC. And with Kansas City, I know it's a one-game sample size with Rashee Rice coming back. To me, that doesn't signify that, the Chiefs are back, like I once said, because there's still teams that they have to play against. Like you mentioned, the Broncos, the Colts, and they still have to play against the Buffalo Bills. And Josh Allen wants to be able to say that he has been successful at beating Patrick Mahomes, not just in the regular season.
That doesn't matter in week
But in the
9.
postseason.
That matters in the postseason.
Listen, I know, but to get your mind ready for the postseason, because think about that. The Chiefs are only going to play Buffalo once, and the winner of that game is going to determine a lot as far as the postseason is concerned. If you are to be proven right to say that Kansas City could be right back there again, you're going to need to win that game against Buffalo because Buffalo's already beaten Baltimore. So now they need to beat you to make you have to go back to, Buffalo to beat them. So this game, even though it's not in the playoffs, it is going to have playoff implications.
He's Nick Ferguson, 10 years in the NFL. I'm Alex Hardy. We are those guys. Continue to follow our content. We're available YouTube or podcast, Apple Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to see us, it's really fun that we get to interact and Nick can see, the sarcasm just pouring out of my veins. And I got to be honest, towards the end of that, I'm just staring up at that Tar Heels helmet over your right shoulder.
Yeah.
Because as bad of a weekend as anybody could have in the National Football League, at least they weren't Bill Belichick. I mean, it was just brutal. They're about to beat Cal. They get that ball over the goal line, and then the ball pops out, and Ron Rivera's, you can't really say as the general manager he's leading that football team, but to me it's like Riverboat Ron was back. It is, for my guy Bill Belichick, been an awful, awful football season. And it just goes to show you that if you are letting your 24-year-old girlfriend run your business and your brand, no wonder the NFL didn't want anything to do with you.
Well, here's a difficult thing for your favorite coach, right? The first thing to think about is it can't get any worse, right?
You say that, and then we find out Michael Lombardi was in Saudi Arabia 2 weeks before the season. I think it could get worse.
Well, at this particular moment, it's not that bad, and you have
Mike McDaniel at 0-1 said at least it can't get any worse.
Hey, look, you can always trend up. All it takes to start a streak is to win one game. That's it. And right now, that should be their priority. Go out there, play the game, make positive plays, possession by possession, and just win one game. That's a winning streak, one game. And then after that, we'll let the dust settle and then handle it from there. But tough outing for your guy in college football.
Yeah, no kidding. Absolutely no kidding. That's right. He's Nick Ferguson. I'm Alex Hardy. Until we come back, we've got, an exciting slate to talk about for Thursday Night Football. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, we're coming to the West Coast. The Vikings, led by Carson Wentz, because some mystery injury to J.J. McCarthy, a.k.a. He's not ready to play football, is keeping him off the field. Meanwhile, the Chargers have to get right quickly. Hopefully we get Joe Alt back. So until then, Nick, I think we're going to be coming off that game. But what do you have to say for the people?
Hey, it's a cold world out there. Bundle up.
I mean, sure, but I'm in California, man.